All right, here we go. New York Sports Rush on a Wednesday, part, of course, of the Bet Rivers Network. Mike Carver here with you, along with, great to be back for the first time in a long time for me and him, CeeLo, Chris Lopresti. What up, CeeLo?
It's been a very long time since you and I have done any sort of actual content together. I couldn't even tell you
Correct.
the last time we did, so this is nice. It's a nice to be back with you, bud.
Well, it's a complete difference from the other day. Like I watched you and JJ on Monday. Saw you 10 hours ago. Nice to see you again. All, passing ships in the night in the hallway. Like I get all this stuff. Me and CeeLo have been way too long since me and CeeLo have gotten to get together. And we got a lot to do today. Yankees, Giants, Jets. We're almost there, CeeLo. It's like dog days of summer are like over. We're across the midpoint of August. You could smell the football. You could smell the baseball heating up. I'm ready to go on New York Sports Rush today.
Yes, we are approaching the best time of the year, at least in my eyes, in my opinion. I love this when we get to the end of summer into the early stages of fall and you get football back. And like you said, really the stretch run of the baseball season, both on a personal and a professional level. Like, listen, you're a father with young kids. The summer months are tricky between work and parent life. You know what that's all about. That's probably a separate show and type digital content series that we could maybe discuss at another time. But no, from a sports perspective, absolutely. Definitely ramping up for football. The preseason is tough to take sometimes, but a necessary evil, especially when you're talking about new coaching staffs, new systems, things like that. So very much looking forward to getting the football underway and seeing what the Yankees can do here down the stretch.
Yep, and they are, of course, in Baltimore this week. They opened the series last night against the Orioles, a 3-1 win for them. They got Carlos Rodon back last night. We'll talk about him a little bit, but I think the most important thing before we get into any real specifics here, CeeLo, is the fact that they were able to kind of right the ship a little bit here. You had that weekend in Toronto where they lost 2 out of 3. They did take the Sunday game to kind of get things moving in the right direction. A nice day off, which they really haven't had a lot of over the last kind of stretch. And now they've got a bunch of days off, which is helpful. Getting off on the right foot against the Baltimore team that had just taken 3 out of 4 in Tampa against the Rays and has themselves back in the wild card mix. 3-1 win for them on Tuesday night. Really nice way to start the series.
And a different style of win than you're used to seeing from the Yankees at Camden Yards. Now, it's much more in line with the type of style we've seen the Yankees playing of late, where it's good pitching, low scoring. So that's pretty much par for the course and the identity that they've kind of carved out for themselves. But in a park where they traditionally hit very well to win that type of game, where you had defensive play again, certainly George Lombard Jr. flashing the leather there at shortstop, the good challenge from Austin Wells to help get Rodon out of that jam in the second inning, which was caused by some not so great defense with Jazz Chisholm and the error with the umpire being in the way and the whole thing. And look, Trent Grisham, it's not been the same type of year that we saw from him last year, but at least of late, here in the month of August, the last couple of weeks, for him to start heating up while the rest of the lineup is struggling. Ben Rice has gone through it outside of hitting the home run in Toronto on Sunday, and obviously the injuries and the guys out of the lineup. For him to come up with some big swings, both with the power bat and the go-ahead 2-run single last night, where his numbers all of a sudden in a short span here, short runway, but the last couple of weeks, very strong, coming up with some big hits and some timely spots, has certainly paid dividends for the Yankees here.
Yeah, they definitely need it because let's be fair. You mentioned how we used to see games in Camden Yards that were 12-8, 10-7. That used to be the standard, those classic 4-hour, 25-minute Yankee Oriole games from back in the day. This is a much different Yankee team. I'm not sure if they're capable of playing a game like
not right now, no.
Anymore. Not only with the way they hit, but with the way they pitch. You don't really see it 12-8 games with the Yankees anymore. You mentioned Grisham. 4 homers in his last 6 games, 5 homers in his last 8. It's been a rough year, but you are starting to see signs that he is breaking out of it. And I think the question is, right there, you see it, is Grisham back, CeeLo? I think that is the most, for where this offense has been, having him at the top and being that guy. If I'm going to get even a slither of that power that I saw last year with the 34 homers, they need it over these last 6 weeks.
Absolutely, especially until we get more on Judge and Stanton, and not only if they're coming back, but what version of them do we get if and when they do come back, and are they able to hit the ground running? And I have my questions and concerns about that, separate issue. But yeah, I mean, look, There have been a lot of empty stretches and empty at bats for Grisham, especially at the top of the order throughout the course of this season. So it'd be nice. Look, if you could draw it up this way where, hey, first half wasn't so great, you weren't getting a lot out of him. And obviously the Yankees have gotten to this point in the standings where they are. So they've been able to kind of keep their head above water and be, for the most part, where we expected them to be. So if all of a sudden he's going to revert to 2025 version of Trent Grisham for the most part down the stretch and fingers crossed into the playoffs, that's huge. It's huge for him on a personal level, obviously heading into an offseason where, the contract's going to be a question again, and who knows what baseball looks like next year. But from a team standpoint, especially with Rice kind of going through it right now, which I think is the trickle down effect of some of the guys being out of the lineup. And really some of the other parts of the lineup playing a little bit of a different style. We know what like Caballero brings to the table. Lombard's done a nice job, but he's not really a thumper. So the power bat has been missing recently. So even if they're going to play in these low scoring type games, to be able to come up with the big swing of the bat late in the game to put the ball over the fence or to knock a couple of runs in, very significant, because on a night in, night out basis, you don't need a ton of runs because of how well this pitching staff has been performing. So that would go a long way, I think, in helping the Yankees secure their spot in the standings, and who knows, maybe even run down Tampa Bay for the division if things started to break their way.
Yeah, the power really hasn't been there. And
No,
watching last night, even, Garcia, I can't get on Garcia too much, Seal, because he has gotten hits. It's not like he's been putting up 0 for 4s
he's been
every night.
okay. He's been all right.
But the power hasn't been there. He homered in his first game for the Yankees after the trade, hasn't homered since. So that's a little bit concerning, especially when you look at some of the pitchers that they faced over this stretch. Him being that powerful lefty bat, they've facing some gas can righties, and he hasn't been able to take any of them yard. So that's a little concerning to me. This Ramos has done nothing since they've gotten him. Honestly,
I was just going to say your boy Ramos, but yeah, this Ramos.
And look, I talked to you guys when that trade happened, and I thought that he'd bring some toughness, and he has that. But man, he also brings a lot of swings and misses. He brings plenty of that too. So I'm a little disappointed in what they've seen from Ramos, but maybe CeeLo, help is getting closer than we think. And we'll do the Judge side of things first, and then we'll get into all the pitching, how Rodon looked, and the Fried going on the IL. But there was an update on Judge yesterday, and that is, of course, that he is now going to his hitting progression, quote unquote, hitting progression next week is going to ramp up. Okay, and that's all fine and good. I think that's the real question is, who are you going to see back first, Judge or Stanton? Like, I feel like at this point, because I saw Stanton taking batting practice last week or 2 weeks ago. Like, I saw it. Like, I thought he was close.
Live at bats. Yeah, I know.
Now, when will we see Judge? We're in mid-August. We just mentioned it at the top. Next week, he's been, I think they said yesterday, CeeLo, Boone said, swinging in a pool. Is that what I've seen with Judge? He's taking swings in a pool.
Yes.
Doesn't sound like a guy who's going to be stepping in, against the Red Sox in a couple weeks. Like, that doesn't sound like he's near that yet.
No, it doesn't. And the graphic that Yes threw up there when they did their injury update on the game last night introduced to hitting progression this week. So I guess the progression now starts in the pool and then you work your way out of the pool. For a guy that's got a, rib midsection, whatever you want to call it, I would think swinging in the pool is actually more prohibitive. I'm not a doctor or a scientist. I must be wrong on that.
When
I didn't realize that was
your
a
physical
thing.
Therapy license.
Yeah,
I cannot believe this.
The swinging in the pool sounds like something I've not quite heard of. But listen, if it's working for him and it's getting him back on the path to return, great. I'm all for it. You and I think, have kind of shared a similar thought process and having our doubts and skepticism about Judge, whether we're actually going to see him. I'm still not fully convinced, but the longer we kind of push this forward slowly but surely, and they don't say, hey, look, he had a setback, we're shutting him down, or we don't like what we saw, we're shutting him down. I think he comes back, but again, what does he look like? Different injury than it was when he got hurt at Dodger Stadium a few years back. But, when he came back from that, he played through it, but he was never quite the same guy. This is a guy who's already had his share of struggles in his postseason career. And that's really what this is all about for the Yankees right now. So his presence, of course, would be a factor. The leadership standpoint would be great. I'm not expecting Aaron Judge, if and when he returns, to all of a sudden come back and be the Aaron Judge we've come to know and love.
I have not expected it. I know I was on here with JJ a couple weeks ago, and I said I fully believed he wasn't coming back, and I would be happy, CeeLo, to have the egg on my face if he does. I really would. I would be fine with that. But I'm also now getting to the point where I'm thinking he probably is going to come back, but is he going to be him? Like, if this stuff drags on and he plays in his first major league game, I'm just going to throw a date at you. September 20th. Like, let's just say a month from now, right?
Seems realistic at the moment. Yeah.
That seems realistic. But what is that? 8 or 9 days of getting at bats, and you think they're going to play him every day those 8 or 9 days, also coming off the injury?
That's a good point. Yeah.
I just don't see the amount of at bats that's going to be needed before they're playing potentially a game one of a wild card series against the Red Sox with him in the lineup off of 35 at bats. Like, I just don't know if that's enough for me to feel confident that I'm getting A+ Aaron Judge in that spot. And that's what would worry me.
I don't think there's any scenario with him that's going to be ideal right now, both for him and for the team. But when you consider the alternative and what they've been running out there productivity wise, you're gonna roll that dice. You're gonna take that chance. To circle back to the question that you asked that I didn't actually answer, Stanton is going to be back first, unless he hurts another part of his calf for the third time now. I think the delay there, again, he's okay. He's almost finished with his running program. You referenced the fact he's been swinging the bat and he's been taking Listen, there might come a point in time where they have to play that card. Also, not an ideal scenario or situation, but the deeper you get into the season and you're in the postseason, I mean, there's no sense of holding back or restraining anything at that point. You got to do what you got to do. I think the delay, and I think Michael Kay made this point, I agree with him. I think the delay with him right now is waiting for those extra couple of roster spots to open in September, because, the idea of bringing him back, knowing that they're not going to use him in the field anytime soon, they already have some guys rotating at DH. It's kind of an empty roster spot that I think they want to maintain some flexibility. So I think he's continuing to do stuff on the side, and probably those first couple of days of September is when you can kind of pencil him in for a return from the IL.
And I'm fine with that. As I say all the time about him, if I get his 1 month of at-bats heading into October, and I know that he could be dangerous, I'm fine. Unfreeze the carbonite on September 1st. Let him come out and play. I'm good with it. Because he's proven to me, CeeLo, that I know what I'm going to get in October. And I know some people still don't like to say that. Oh, well, some have been bad. He's had more good than bad in October for the Yankees.
He has now.
So if I get him, now it's like Judge, I don't want him rolling out of bed on September 21st and go, because I don't think that's good. But you give me a full month of Giancarlo Stanton at bats, and I'm going to be just fine going into it. All right, pitching side of things. What'd you think of Rodon last night? I'm not the biggest Rodon guy. I'm really not. And I understand, it was limited work for him here. Four innings, 2 hits, a run, 4 Ks. He threw just in the mid-60s, I think, with the pitch count coming back. I'm still not a big believer, CeeLo, and with how well they've pitched, he could be, if he's part of this rotation, he could be the weaker link, I feel like, out of all these guys. Although Warren hasn't been great recently either.
Well, look, I mean, as you project to the postseason, where you're not going to need 5. And assuming, I know we'll get to Fried, assuming he's part of that mix, I agree. I don't think any Yankee fan, I don't think there's a Yankee fan out there that loves Carlos Rodon. But if you're telling me he's, 4th on the pecking order behind Cole and Fried and Schlittler, that's not terrible, because he does have the ability to go out, maybe not as consistently as the other guys. He does have the ability to go out and give you a representative performance, which is kind of what you got last night, where you knew the runway was going to be shorter because he just wasn't stretched out enough to the point where they considered another rehab outing to get the pitch count up a little bit. Look, with him, it's the big moments and the big spots. You feel like he maybe just doesn't quite have the mental fortitude to kind of gut his way through a tricky situation. Then again, he did get out of that jam in the second inning last night. But not a postseason situation, obviously. My favorite thing he did last night was the lip reading we did when he mouthed what he said to Lombard after the play. It's tremendous. I do love the lip readings. Well, that you didn't even need John Boy for that one. We all could read those lips and what he had to say. So you like him talking up the rookie there and being appreciative of the defensive work and the glove work. So if he's going to slot in as the number 4 when Fried gets back, I'm fine with that. If you're talking about him pitching in like a elimination game in the postseason, a potential elimination game, of course, you're not going to have a ton of confidence. But also, if you told me, hey, he went out and gave them, 5 1/3 of 2 or 3 run ball, I'd be like, okay, I believe that. I'd sign for that. And then that comes back to the conversation we're having about the offense. And really, when you look at the Yankees in recent years in the postseason, the pitching usually holds up okay overall. It's
I
the
agree.
offense, the lack of consistency, not enough balls in play, not enough not good at bats with runners in scoring position or in big spots. So I have less concern about even a guy like Rodon, the pitching staff, than I do the overall consistency of this lineup and their ability to score runs against better pitching staffs when we get to October.
Agree on that point. Absolutely, CeeLo. So Fried, a little bit of a surprise also the other day. 15-day IL, left elbow bone bruise for him. Of course, they also slight inflammation, all
Yeah.
of these things. Now, they say, remember, this is the Yankees and their medical staff. They say this is not going to be as bad as him missing the couple months that he already has in this season. They say it's going to be a minimal IL stint. I guess the first thing I would say is, do you believe them or not? Because I don't think I ever believe anything that they say anymore, so I'm not too sure. So when you say level of panic with the Max Fried injury, I mean, for me, it's there because I envision what you just talked about. I envision Cole, Schlittler, and Fried being my three guys in October. And I think that there should be some concern that we're once again going back to the IL. And this is off pitching a really good pitching for. I mean, he's pitched well since
Yeah.
coming back, Sila. So I think my level of concern is a little bit higher, but maybe that's just because I'm so pessimistic with the medical staff and I never trust them.
I share your overall skepticism when it comes to the Yankees and the injury stuff. And we kind of alluded to that with our Judge conversation just a few minutes
Right.
ago. And you and I have talked about that off air as well. This one, I don't, for whatever reason, and I know he missed a lot of time earlier in the season with a similar type injury, but I, I'm not really pressing the panic button on this one much. This one seems to me like, hey, something popped up and they figured let's get ahead of it now as we
Right.
head towards the tail end of the regular season. We want this guy right in October. And you talked about it, not only coming off a good pitching performances last time out, but really since he came off the IL from the first stint, I think the ERA was somewhere around, I want to say around 2, right in that range. So
Yep.
he's pitched well, and maybe he's not feeling 100%. Maybe he's not full go, but at this stage of his career, still more than capable of giving you a good performance and still missing bats. Strikeouts have been there for the most part. And I think this is a guy that at this stage will be comfortable working through whatever it is he's feeling. Maybe it's never going to be perfectly right until next spring training, even if that. But I
Right.
think this to me feels like, you know what, they've got enough capable arms right now. Steal him a little bit of a break and let's make sure that we kind of stay on top of this and monitor it so it doesn't get worse in September. And this way, when you get into October, he's ready to take the ball and do what he's being paid to do.
Absolutely. A couple more with the Orioles here tonight and tomorrow. You're going to get, of course, this evening for them, Will Warren against the Bassett Hound, Chris Bassett. Cole will go tomorrow against Bradish. Last 2 road games for the Yankees for a pretty considerable stretch. They're going to have 3 straight series at home with the Blue Jays, Astros, and the Red Sox, including a doubleheader thrown in there. So nice opportunity here, CeeLo. I think they can win both of these games, honestly, with these pitching matchups. Bassett and Bradish are 2 guys that they have hit in the past and should be able to hit. I guess the concern would be Will Warren tonight, maybe, but especially when you look at it from the betting side of things at Bet Rivers tonight, I do like the Yankees against the Orioles in the Wednesday night match.
I always like the Yankees against the Orioles. Nothing against Baltimore. I don't know. It just seems like a very comfortable spot for the Yankees. And I know we already talked about the different vibe of where they're at right now versus the games they've played at Camden Yards over the last, 25, 30 years
Right.
at this point. And look, Warren, for what you're asking from him, I feel like he's done the job. He's taken the ball. Yeah, not every start out is going to be the best or dominant or anything like that, but I think he's a quality back end of the rotation guy who's certainly capable of going out and giving you a good start. He can miss bats if he gives you 5 or 6 innings of 3-4 run ball in today's day and age. I'm okay with that. And that again comes back to they've got to find some more consistency from this lineup. I'm looking for more out of Garcia. Ramos has done nothing, as we already
Right.
alluded to. So law of averages suggests at some point he's going to run into one. I mean, forget the fact that he's 3 for 39. He's striking out a ton. He's got no RBIs. I mean, it's 12 games, but that's a rough way to
Yeah.
acclimate yourself into the Yankee lineup. So yeah, a little run support for Will Warren tonight from this bumbling Yankee offense would be nice to see. Grisham's
would be
hot.
nice.
Get Ben Rice going and a couple of these other bats. I like what Lombard's given them so far, both offensively and defensively. So I'm kind of okay with where they're at right now. Even though some guys have missed significant time, they've managed it all right. They're gonna
Yeah.
be there. It's just a question of what version of the Yankees, what are they gonna look like when we get to that wild card round series?
American League stinks, as we've said all
That too.
year.
That goes a long way. That helps.
100%
Yeah.
part of it as well.
Yes.
So Yankees Orioles, there you go. Big total tonight. Be careful of Alonso. He's been hot. 10-game hitting streak, 19 hits during that span, 5 homers during that span. Watch out for Alonso here as well. He's been cooking. All right, there you go with the Yankees. Before we do a little bit of football, CeeLo, and of course, this is New York Sports Rush, part of the Bet Rivers Network. Mike Carver and Chris Lopresti here with you on this one. And we are getting closer and closer. September 3rd, the Mike Francesa Bar A Bash.
Oh,
I
baby.
want to see everybody out there. I'm going to be there. I'm slowly dragging CeeLo in as well. Like, I'm trying really hard. Like, CeeLo's close. Like, a local CeeLo. Like, I don't understand why we can't get CeeLo out to the Bash. It is free admission on September the 3rd at Bar A. Check the Bar A website for some VIP tickets. I mean, come on, CeeLo. Let's go. I'm putting you on the spot right here on the show.
It's not the locale. I love the locale. I was at Bar A for a little 40th birthday not that long ago. Everything
is that
looked
right?
great. Yeah, it's a good spot. Still a good spot. It's certainly not any lack of desire to hang out with you and other company. I mean, you and I don't get to see each other that often in person. So, to hang out for a bit would be great. It always, you know how it is. It comes down to what's going on with the kids. I'm coaching youth football. There's other work situations that are going on. So no, I know you do. So if I can carve out a couple of hours with Carver, that would be great. So we're still efforting that, but it's not for a lack of desire. Let's put it that way.
Well, I'll just say this. You can continue to effort it, but for everybody else, I don't want you to effort it. I want to see you at Bar A, September the 3rd. Mike wants to see you there. The Mike Francesa Bar A Bash, free admission. And if you want the VIP, go on the Bar A website, and we can take care of that. All right, let's do some football, CeeLo, here. All right, let's get rolling. And we'll do the Giants first, because I think I got a little bit more to do with the Jets. We got preseason week number 2. We're almost there. We're going to cross the halfway mark of preseason, these 3 games, which is so incredibly tough to get to. I think everybody gets excited, CeeLo, for the first preseason game. They get to see their team again for the first time in forever. And then after you watch that first preseason game, you're kind of like, all right, when's the real thing? This is just absolutely brutal. Giants camp this week, and they get ready to take on the Dolphins on Saturday down in Miami. Obviously, Malik, having Neighbors starting to really get going. And Harbaugh said last week that this was going to be the week where they really ramped him up. He caught a long catch from Dart in practice yesterday. Seems like, and this I feel like is super important. CeeLo, obviously, he's such a dynamic player. You want to have him out there. I think it's going to help, obviously, the rest of the offense, too. I want to see more of this over the next few weeks with the hopes that he's going to be out there Sunday night, week 1 against the Cowboys.
Listen to him talk this week after a couple of these practices and getting out there in the, 11 on 11, 7 on 7. He's got the red jersey on, and him alluding to, his soul being dead during the process, and hey, you're starting to see the dog come out a little. You can almost hear in his answers with the media and also the way he's carrying himself, the confidence is starting to build, and probably the confidence he's feeling physically, starting to trust the leg and the knee a little bit more. And look, it seemed like a real tough process for him, not your simple cut and dry ACL repair. I think there was a little bit more to it than that. That's certainly been reported on. So you can understand why, maybe it's taken him a little bit longer than some other guys, but everything hinges on him offensively outside of Dart, of course. But I mean, when you go, they've got all these guys you've heard of at receiver, but outside of the excitement surrounding Malachi Fields, it's a lot of guys are a little long in the tooth, not exactly your type A number 1 receiver. I honestly think a big part of Beckham's presence in camp right now is like an insurance policy for Neighbors. I could be dead wrong on that. I think it's a good guy to have around just in case, or, veteran dependable presence. But it comes down to Neighbors getting on the field and getting back to being the guy he was before the injury. I mean, they've got to have that if they really want to have consistent success. And take some of the pressure off of the style we saw Dart operate under last year. And I know it's going to be a different offense, and maybe they're not going to design as much for him with the ball in his hands beyond the line of scrimmage. And yeah, of course, the run game with Scadaboo helps. You got Isaiah Likely there now. I think could be a good presence for him. But as far as a dynamic offense is concerned, it comes down to Neighbors being Neighbors. I'm hopeful that he's going to be ready to go week one. Obviously, we'll get a better feel for that over the course of the next couple of weeks. But I did like hearing from him and feeling like, there was some positive vibes surrounding his actions on the field and then the way in which he was speaking about his condition afterwards. So that's a good sign.
It is a good sign. I think it's an absolute must-have for them. It's a must-have for Jackson Dart. You mentioned some of these other guys, and look, I've said this a bunch already. I think that Beckham is going to be a contributor. I really do. And you saw 2 catches. I know it wasn't a lot of yardage. It was some short stuff on Saturday in that first preseason game. But I think the fact is getting him out there and having him run some routes, not get hurt, catch a couple balls. I do think that that's telling. And I love Fields, CeeLo. I mean, anyone who's out of South Bend, I'm going to have a soft spot for. So I don't see, that's why I thought that Beckham could have a big year. Because if Neighbors is healthy and Fields is as good as I think he's going to be, it leaves a lot of room for him to maybe be that third guy running around out there and potentially taking advantage of that. So I do think that there's something there for Odell Beckham Jr. Coming into this season. As far as the run game goes, run game gets a little stronger. Najee Harris signed off the street this week, CeeLo. Right there in the pads in practice yesterday. He's ready to rock. You have another kind of big bruising guy you can throw in there with Scadaboo. You got Singletary too. Interesting running back dynamic now with the Giants, especially if Harris is going to be hanging around.
Yeah, I wonder who falls out of the mix. People obviously made a big deal out of Tyrone Tracy missing the blitz pickup and Dart getting crunched in the preseason opener. But I mean, when you talk about adding another back of a similar style, and look, I get it. That's the MO of the Harbaugh teams in Baltimore, physical run game with the dynamic nature of Lamar Jackson. Of course, they've got Pat Ricard now that's coming over from Baltimore. So that they want to establish that and be a physical force between the tackles, a pounding running style, but you also need versatility. So, to me, Tyrone, whether it's Tracy or Singletary, like you're only going to carry so many backs. Harris for me is, productivity in Pittsburgh, 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons, but a lot of touches to get to those numbers. Like his, average per carry, not the best. Coming off the Achilles now, wonder where he's going to be at. Harbaugh said it's going to take us a couple weeks to get him up to speed as far as his conditioning and getting back to 100%. So look, it's worth a look. It's low risk, high upside, I suppose. I'm just wondering how that running back mix shakes out. And if they're removing one of those other backs, I think I like to have my running back room be versatile. And I got guys of different styles that I can plug in different spots. But if it comes down to, hey, we don't really trust one of these guys in pass protection or as a third down back, and we're really not comfortable putting them on the field, then sure, that opens up opportunities for others. So fine with them bringing them in to take a look. I'm just curious how those final roster cuts are going to shake down and what that running back depth chart looks like when we get to the season opener.
Yeah, I'm surprised, Motor Singletary still hangs around.
You would know better than others.
He had the long catch too.
He did
in the first preseason game against the
catch
Vikings.
And run, yeah.
And look, Harris, really didn't play last year. He had 15 carries for the whole season with the Chargers. So injury for him, maybe be a little bit fresher this season. I think it could be a decent ad for them going forward. The defensive side of things. Did you see Carter yesterday? Abdul Carter. And listen, I like guys who make statements, CeeLo. I don't mind it. There's nothing wrong with making a statement and being confident. He thinks that the Giants can and should lead the NFL in sacks this season. And this is all great. I mean, that sounds awesome. I hope he has a bunch of them. I hope that Kayvon Thibodeau has a bunch of them. I mean, Reese, I'd love to see all these guys have a bunch of sacks. But you know what, CeeLo? I've been hearing this for a while now. Let's see it. Let's see it. Let me see all the sacks.
Go big or go home seems to be the approach there. So, yeah, you shoot for the stars. You said high expectations. Look, they have the personnel. I would say some years, results and statistics don't always back up what you're seeing out there on the field. You get sometimes these years where there's a ton of quarterback pressures and they're getting close but not quite finishing. So I don't get as much wrapped up. I get for him, that's the bottom line. These guys are paid to sack the quarterback, but if they're going to be disruptive with their front seven and impact games, that's really all I care about. Especially the run defense didn't look great. I know it's a preseason game against Minnesota. You got your question marks there, and to me, the secondary might be their weakest unit positional group wise in the entire roster. So those guys up front, the pressure is on them to get pressure and have productivity. They certainly have the personnel, especially when they get into these passing downs where they can kind of, really overload and go heavy with their pass rushing guys coming from all different angles. Mentioned Burns, you mentioned some of the other guys. Arvell Reese now in as a rookie, looks like very
I didn't even
capable.
mention Burns.
That's what I mean. That's why I'm throwing that name in there. Well, because I think here's why. I think the reason he has been productive. Abdul Carter, the back half of his rookie year was much better. And now you got another rookie in Reese. Thibodeau's he's been okay. I know it's sort of been a lightning rod and the source of debate, especially in this town and this market. Carl Banks has been at the forefront of that at times, who would certainly know more than most of us. So on paper, they have the guys, but yeah, like you said, let's go out and see it. So I'm good with Carter, setting the expectations high. Now you got to back up the words and go do it.
39 sacks last year, pretty much right in the middle of the NFL for the Giants. I would like to see Carter. Burns, I'm not worried about.
Right.
Burns is a monster. So I'm not worried about it's Carter, it's Thibodeau, and obviously Reese is a rookie. So you give him this is year 2 for Carter. He had 4 sacks last year. I want to see Carter take that jump up, CeeLo, to that 8 to 10 sack range here in his second season. So, and Thibodeau too. I could use a little bit more out of him.
Yes.
I could always use a little bit more.
Yeah, need more cowbell. Gotta have it.
Gotta have more cowbell. On the Jet side of things, over at Florham Park, they did avoid pretty big injury scare this week. You had Breece Hall leaving practice on Monday. Everybody got very nervous. It sounds like, CeeLo, maybe this is just going to be a 2 or 3 week thing, and maybe hopefully opening day, still very much in the cards for him.
Yeah, when I first heard, it was right as JJ and I were, getting ready to do our thing on Monday, and I was like, oh wow, I hadn't seen that. When you hear non-contact, of course, you always get concerned. But once they were talking groin rather than, knee or lower leg or something like that, you're thinking, okay, a little bit of a tweak, should be all right. I've always been a Breece Hall guy. I didn't think the Jets should have traded him or moved on from him. I'm glad that they gave him the contract. We've seen glimpses of it at times. He's just never able to build any sort of consistent momentum. So I'm really hopeful that the projection here is accurate and that when they get to week 1 or if it's even week 2, whatever the case may be, like I want to see him fully unleashed in this offense. Same for Garrett Wilson. Those two guys have dealt with nothing but losing and frustration since they've gotten here. Injuries at times as well. Hall had a significant one a couple years back that he's returned from. And I think every time I see the ball in his hands, I see a guy that can be really impactful and explosive. And I feel like he's just been underused at times. Part of it is the quarterback play has been dreadful for the Jets. We know that. So to me, such a focal part of what I think Frank Reich's trying to do this year. So yeah, I'm really hopeful it's just a couple of weeks. Not the worst thing if that's the case, because he got some carries in the opener, got to feel some contact, get his touches. I don't know how much they would have played him in the preseason the rest of the way either. So get him right and make sure he's ready to go, because the Jets, that early season schedule is daunting. So they need him out there to make sure that they don't dig themselves an early hole. And then all of a sudden you're talking about job security questions for Aaron Glenn.
We're going to talk about that in a moment because I'm going to end with that. But first, listening to people talk, who watched a little bit of the preseason game and have been at the practices and seen all that, I think people are starting to believe, CeeLo, I don't know if I'm necessarily one of them, that the Jet offense might be pretty good this year. They think about, Geno maybe has an offense. He had no offensive line last year in Vegas. I will readily admit that. That was a very tough situation for him. There's some weapons there. I love some of the guys they drafted, like Cooper and the tight end from Oregon. I love these guys. Is the Jet offense going to be good, CeeLo? Do you think it's going to be good with Frank Reich leading it?
Good. I think good is maybe pushing it a little bit, similar to what we just talked about with the Giants and the sacks. Like, let me see it, go do it. Can't be much worse than it was. The bar is set very low. I'm not trying to, hit the low-hanging fruit here with the Jets. I mean, the jokes write themselves. Quarterback play should be improved. I mean, I was always a Geno guy when he was first here, maybe to a fault. He is what he is at this point in his career, but look, he's capable. So if they're healthy, we talked about Brees Hall's condition. Garrett Wilson to me is a guy that I think has put the weight of the world on his shoulders and at times tried to do too much out there, trying to turn this around. Some semblance of a supporting cast that's consistently out there, plus a reliable, proven offensive coordinator, I think should do wonders. I'm excited about Sadiq, but he's coming back from the little procedure he had, hasn't really been as present in camp. Mason Taylor almost becomes like an afterthought, a guy that they invested a second round. He was pretty productive as a rookie. Yeah, bad offense, but to your point, they have some playmakers. They've got some personnel. I'm excited about Omar Cooper Jr. as well. The line is pretty solidified. So those are all good things. But when it comes to the Jets and quarterback play and offensive football and the fact that they do have a pretty challenging schedule, I need to see them go do it. I'm cautiously optimistic, but to say they're going to be good, I would settle for average. I would settle for middle of the road and take baby steps with this Jet offense. Good would be that would be amazing. That would be, soaring beyond expectations in my eyes.
Let's close with this because you mentioned Aaron Glenn, job security, all of those things. Really good conversation with JJ and Brian Costello yesterday here on the New York Sports Rush. And after watching it, and there was one moment in particular with Kaz, where he was talking about Aaron Glenn's job security. And CeeLo, Kaz been around the Jets forever.
Yes.
Forever. Best in the biz when it comes to the Jets. He doesn't think that Woody Johnson would fire Aaron Glenn in season. Doesn't think that he wants to do that. Obviously, Saleh, I've heard him saying Saleh was a little bit of a different situation. He didn't necessarily hire him. Chris did, and there was, they didn't like each other. Kaz thinks that Woody generally likes Aaron Glenn, doesn't think he would do that. Do you think, it does kind of make me look at it a little differently. I was squarely, CeeLo, in the camp of this team's going to start 1-4. He's going to get chopped. Frank Reich's going to coach the team the rest of the season. It's going to be a complete restart. Brian's got me thinking a little bit differently. Maybe he would let Aaron Glenn hang around for the whole year, if that's true.
Hard to get inside the mind of Woody Johnson at any point in time and understand, which way the wind's going to blow on a certain day. Sorry, I hate to say it that way. Look, I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I just think he's hard to read at times. And I think he has a tendency to have some people that get in his ear over there in Florham Park, or his close by consultants or people that he trusts, whether it's someone that's in the family, that's a blood relative or a friend or a business partner, whatever the case may be. Look, I understand it's a little different. Glenn being a former player, it's a different dynamic than with Saleh. Last year was rough. It was rough. Glenn's even admitted as much. It was not a great look. Different approach this year with him calling the defense. You hope, obviously, he's learned on the job from some of the issues that they had in year one. It should be a better team on paper from a personnel standpoint. You'd like to see Woody not overreact or press the panic button because of the fact that the schedule is difficult. And I get it. It's frustrating for the fan base. The Jets are an easy target when they're losing games. We understand all that stuff. It's been going on for the better part of, 15 years now since they last even sniffed the playoffs. So I don't think it's a lock that he gets chopped, but here's what we both know. Whether Woody Johnson intends to even consider making a move or not, it's going to be talked about. If they're 1-4 out of the gate, the stories are going to be written. The questions are going to be asked. We already saw Glenn get a little prickly with the media last year. That's, again, hopefully something he's learned from, and we'll do it. Yeah, well, I'm being kind. So it's going to happen. It's happened to a lot of guys that have come before him in that building. I'm sure it'll happen to guys that come after him in that building and in that organization. So I'm a little skeptical when it comes to that whole situation.
If there was one thing you would think coming out of last year, where you have all these months between February and the start of camp in July, that someone in the Jet organization had to work on with Aaron Glenn, I would think it's his handling of the media. Like, wouldn't that be one thing, CeeLo, that you would think, like, listen, Aaron, we love you, but, things got a little rough here, they got a little rough here, they got a little rough there. I would think that that's something, and there really hasn't been any outlandish stuff from him so far. Through camp, he's been pretty focused, straight arrow, all of that. So maybe there was a little bit of meeting of the minds of, can we not do the tough talk when we haven't won anything? Like, can we not do that stuff?
I'm sure that there was, and I think it was his first press conference of camp. I believe it was Mark Cannizzaro that was asking him a question, and he said, "Listen, I don't want to be a butthole." He said butthole, which was kind of funny. That was jarring. I wasn't expecting that word to come out of his mouth. I'm sure that took place. I'm sure there are members of the
Right.
organization, PR department, all that.
Yeah.
It's easy to execute that in July and August when the games don't
Yeah.
count. 1-4 in New York, in this
Not
market
easy.
with some of the veteran reporters and the history of this organization is an entirely different animal. And that's not
No
me
doubt.
just taking easy shot. It's just, it is what it is. By the way, the Giants have been dealing with that for the better part of the last, since their last Super Bowl run as well, with very
Yep.
few exceptions. So it's really market based. We see it with the other teams in the market as well. It's tough. It is. And the fans have high expectations. There's frustrations. The media's got a job to do and they've got content to sell. We're in the content business. We get how that works. So I think that sometimes gets lost on players and
Yeah.
coaches. You hoped Glenn would be prepared for that because he played here. I didn't see a lot of evidence of that in year one. Could he make the transition and the change and overcome and do better in that department? You would hope so. But similar to the Giants pass rush and the Jets offense, I got to go see him do it.
I do as well. And why doesn't everybody go and check out that conversation with JJ and Brian
Great
Costello?
idea.
New York Sports Rush channel, Bet Rivers Network, yesterday's show on Tuesday. Go check it out. Good stuff from JJ and Kaz. Good stuff from you today, CeeLo. Nice job
Yeah,
by you
man. I hope we
today.
get to do this a bunch more moving forward.
I hope so. I miss you, pal. I
Likewise.
miss. At least I could see you in a screen. I can't see you in person, but at least I could see you in a screen.
It's that
For once
Jersey
in a while.
Long Island thing, the mileage is not long. It's one state, but
Crossing two rivers.
we might as well be
Crossing
living in
two.
different countries,
We play golf together. I can't
Yeah.
cross two rivers. We
And
can't
the
even
only
go
time we
do
get
any.
together for golf, we go to Connecticut.
That's right. You got to go all the way up there. Great job, CeeLo. New York Sports Rush. Mike Carver, Chris Lopresti, part of the Bet Rivers Network. Enjoy the Yanks and the Orioles the next couple days. We'll see you again next time.